Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be explaining to you guys how to make blue raspberry macarons. And for this experiment, I actually have two websites pulled up here. And the reasoning behind that is because we actually had experimented with strawberry cheesecake macarons in the past, and we were pretty pleased by the way that things turned out, just with the overall consistency and texture and whatnot. So anyways, without further ado, I'm just going to get into the ingredients that we're going to need for the blue raspberry macarons. On this website is called bigbearswife.com. So for this, what we're going to need is 1 3/4. So I had to change this. This is the difference right here. One of the differences. Tasty.com had explained that you need 1 3/4 cups of powdered sugar. This particular recipe says 1 1/4, so we're just going to change that to 1 3/4. 1 cup of almond flour, 3 large eggs, but all we're going to need from the eggs is the egg whites, and I'll get to that pretty soon. We're not going to do the pinch of salt. Pinch of salt is something that they recommend adding to the egg whites in here. For some odd reason, I'm not sure why, but we had already experimented with this one other time and the texture just wasn't there, so it's kind of a theory floating down in space. But anyways, we're eliminating the pinch of salt. Then we're going to need a 1/4 cup of granulated white sugar, a corn flour blue, dark, navy blue food coloring, and pink luster dust. Those are just the ingredients for the macarons themselves. And for the raspberry filling, we're going to need a 1/2 cup of white frosting. In this case, it says homemade or store-bought, so we did store-bought. An 1/8 teaspoon of raspberry extract. Going to need 3 drops of pink food coloring, 1 to 2 tablespoons raspberry spread, and a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar to finish things off here. So to start this, step number 1. Accumulate 3 egg whites, extract the yolks, and put them in a small bowl so that the egg whites are at room temperature. Step 2, add your powdered sugar and almond flour. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say add, I should say sift it in a fairly large bowl so that there's no clumps. And after the sifting is done, then you're going to need to go back to the egg whites. This is when you're going to have to bust out a electric whisker. So you attach your whisk and you then whisk up the egg whites for a few minutes until they start to become a little foamy. And then after maybe like 2 to 3 minutes of whisking that on high, you would then add your 1/4 cup of granulated sugar to that. And you want to ideally mix this for maybe about like 5 to 7 minutes tops until it becomes white and glossy and the stiffs start to peak. So after this, you would then keep that bowl there, mix in your almond flour and powdered sugar mixture in there with, like probably every fourth at a time. And then you'd grab your rubber spatula, literally just to fold it into the egg white mixture. After that's all done and that step is completed, then you would proceed to, and everything's mixed in, theoretically speaking, you would then take your food coloring, which, by the way, we didn't have the exact corn flour color, so we had to get a little creative. So hence the reason why we have black and blue. We kind of got a little bit of creative with this, and it says, the recipe does say to add as many drops as needed, so on the high side we roughly added like about 22 drops just to make the color right. After the food coloring is set in place, you'd then have to get a, not exactly sure what they call it because I'm not a baking expert, but one of those baking bags or whatever where you cut the ends off and you then create, I think they're called like a frosting bag, if you will. So we put the entire mixture in one of those frosting bags. In our case, we had just a simple sandwich bag. And after lining your baking sheets with parchment paper, you would then, from there, just put 1.5 inch dollops on the baking sheets. Fairly, giving it probably at least a half an inch of spacing between each of those, so that they don't overlap each other or bake into each other. And after that's done, you just need to let these macarons sit out at room temperature for 1.5 to 2 hours. And the recipe does say that they should have a very soft film that you can touch without breaking each macaron, and that's when you know that they're ready. So after that's done, you preheat your oven to 285 degrees. You would then bake these for 13 to 15 minutes, roughly. And after the baking's done, you move on to your raspberry filling. So you combine every ingredient except your powdered sugar in a small bowl, mix it all together. Then after that's done, slowly add the 4th cup of powdered sugar, a tablespoon at a time, and again, whip it all together. And then once the macarons are completely dry, you want to probably have them dry for at least an hour room temp, or throw them in the refrigerator overnight. Then you make each sandwich by sandwich. And where the pink luster dust comes into play is this is literally just for decoration to top it all off. And voila, there you go. There's the finished product, and there's a blue raspberry macaron right there. Thank you guys for listening and joining my how-to demonstration on blue raspberry macarons. I hope you enjoyed it.